politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Joining me, Gunnar Balstad, one of my favorite guests to have on the show. You know, it's not just that Jesse wasn't available today. It's also the fact that this topic is one of your favorite to discuss.
Indeed, it is.
And I think it's important to discuss it. And I think people need to approach this with a very open mind, whether you're from the MAGA universe or a traditional Republican. You got to open your mind to be willing to listen to what we have to say here, because we need to be critical when we're being lied to. Is that a fair way to start this show, Gunnar? That little caveat?
Well, I think so. And I think it's important to understand what just happened to us. I mean, we absolutely just had the wool pulled over our eyes, nothing to see here. And I think that everyone should be offended by that, left or right. We had strong evidence to suggest that there was a foreign intelligence operation that was blackmailing our elite. And as soon as we were so close to discovering what was happening, we had Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi on the case. They all claimed that there was files, evidence, that there was video, even though they said at first that the video was gone. Remember that the video had been deleted or malfunctioned.
That was the narrative of Trump's first administration, Bill Barr being the attorney general, right?
Right.
That initially looked into it.
So what we've seen is a case build up like no other, and then for them to claim that there's nothing there. It's a nothing burger. And we're going to try to ask today, where's the beef? And we're going to find it.
Crucified says, hello, everyone. We say back to you, Crucified. Thanks for joining us. If you want to be a part of our show at any point, hit that Rumble Rant button. We'll go directly to your comment and read it live on air. We're brought to you today by Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Also by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. Or check them out on Facebook or X, where they got a top-notch game. Also, we're brought to you by Elite Guardian, which is a company that I started. We have a concealed carry and home defense course this week. It's Friday. If you're interested in signing up, you can go to eliteguardianmn.com and sign up for the class. You know what? I could probably – can I just post that here? Let's see here. Well, I should have been prepared for this one.
You could maybe share in the chat.
I will share in the chat eventually. Now this is the problem. Lose Dawson, and now I have to run the dials. The new guy's here, but we got to train him in on the equipment. So I have to run the dials temporarily. I hate running the dials. I absolutely hate. I just turn on the lights and I'll start talking. So anyhow, you can go to eliteguardianmn.com. All right. Got that business out of the way. This is Pam Bondi. This is Attorney General. Now, I'm just going to put this out there. Never was a fan of Pam Bondi. Trump initially, we have to remember, Trump was initially appointing Matt Gaetz, which was like of all his picks for his cabinet, that was like, whoa, did he really just do that? And then within a week, Matt Gaetz is dropping out, saying, don't even consider me, which was crazy. So then he picks Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is like a Jeb Bush supporter. Are we shocked that she wasn't good? Anyone shocked by that? Okay. So she isn't one of us, right? She isn't MAGA. She's one of those opportunists. But anyhow, I don't want to just say Pam Bondi bad. It's all going to fall on her plate. Eventually, it's got to fall on Trump's plate. This is Pam Bondi talking to Fox News earlier this year about the Epstein files. Let's go and play this.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
Are we checking back with her? I mean, she literally says they're on the desk. What do you make of that video?
Well, I mean, I wanna go back to what you were saying about Matt Gaetz. Okay, so Matt Gaetz had a very similar, issue when he was down in Florida, okay? So, he was a local congressman, got involved with a couple of the wrong people, got involved with someone who hosted underage parties and created, fake IDs, something like this, and pulled Matt Gaetz into some of these parties, got some compromat on him supposedly, and then, tried to extort he and his father. I forget the scheme, the racket that they tried, and they tried to extort, Matt Gaetz and his father, and they used this underage kinda blackmail, information compromat against him in this situation. He ended up being exonerated and really kind of passing that initial test, but that compromat stuck with him. So, what happened when he was nominated for AG? That compromat began to surface, and it excluded him from eligibility. And I think that's another way where you see someone who truly is America first, who's willing to call out the deep state, be side railed by the same deep state he's trying to oust. So,
Mhm.
unfortunately, we didn't get Matt Gaetz, who now has since gone on several podcasts and has stated that there is an intelligence operation behind Epstein, but he has yet to name the foreign state. But he has since I think he's on News Nation, or what uh channel
That
does he
sounds
have a
right.
show on? It's
Yeah, I
like
can't even
TV
remember.
or like
It's one of the
News
ones I
Nation
don't
or
watch.
something like
Yeah.
that. Anyway, he's got a great show, and he's calling out the ties between the US federal government and the Israeli government, and so I think that's clearly why he wasn't selected. So with Pam Bondi now here,
Well, it's
even
very important for us to also mention, for people that aren't aware of this, that Alexander Costa, who ended up becoming Department of Labor for Trump's first term, he was the federal prosecutor down in Florida who gave Epstein a sweetheart deal. And when he was, I think he was in an interview, a media interview about it, he had said that Epstein, it was told him that Epstein was of intelligence, like he was of someone's intelligence, right?
yeah, Acosta was told that he was intelligence and then he had to back off. So he gave him a plea deal, a light plea deal. And that same plea deal was what ultimately ousted him from Trump's cabinet because of his light sentencing with Epstein. He caught grief for that, rightly so, and was ousted from Trump's first office.
And I
So,
don't think we know of, at this point, who told them he's of intelligence. That's another thing that would be very interesting for us to find out. Who came to you? Who said that? Because when I look at the Epstein situation, I'm always like, how does this guy have his fingers in so many things? How do things work? How does he get a penthouse, given to him by um
Leslie Wexner.
Leslie Wexler? How does he get like this $158 million for, what was it, a hedge fund that gave it to him? Or was it Deutsche Bank? Was it Deutsche Bank? I'm already
Yeah,
forgetting.
JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon. I mean, he's had funding from all over. Bill Gates. I mean,
Right.
let's not forget why Melinda Gates broke up with divorced Bill.
Hmm.
He's because of his Epstein involvement.
So
And
let's get into what the DOJ released yesterday, and this is found on Fox News. I'm just gonna stick with Fox News today here. It looks like, because it's good old Fox News. This is from the U.S. Department of Justice and FBI. It says, as part of our commitment to transparency, the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have conducted an exhaustive review of investigative holdings relating to Jeffrey Epstein. To ensure that the review is thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of its databases, hard drives, and network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored. These searches uncovered a significant amount of material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. The files relating to Epstein include a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. Teams of agents, analysts, attorneys, and privacy and civil liberties experts combed through the digital and documentary evidence with the aim of providing as much information as possible to the public while simultaneously protecting victims. Much of the material is subject to court-ordered sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of child pornography. Okay, thanks. No one's asking you for that, by the way. All right. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list, and it's funny, it's in quotations. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Consistent with prior disclosures, this review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. Each suffered unique trauma. Sensitive information related to these victims is intertwined throughout the materials. This includes specific details such as victim names and likeliness, physical descriptions, place of birth, associates, and employment history. Okay. At some point, and I think we just have to all admit that that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. I mean, what is the FBI saying here? Excuse me. That Jeffrey Epstein had this sick fetish himself and just obtained video and photography of 1,000, minors and whatever other sex victims for himself, and Ghislaine Maxwell enjoyed them too? Is that what they're saying? And the fact that they had this island and the wealthiest and the people from the scientific community and the people that were previous and current politicians went out there. That has nothing to do with all. I mean, is that what the FBI is saying in that letter?
Well, what they're doing is they're totally walking back their previous assessments, and they're doing it in a way that is obviously flawed and grotesque, and in a way that we can tell they're lying.
Right.
When you have Dan Bongino and Kash Patel appearing before they were appointed, they were incredibly lucid and cogent in their questioning the situation, and they were on the right trail, asking the right questions. What are these men? Who were the elite? Who was he working for? Who was funding him? All of these questions are still they're largely known, but our government won't admit them. So you have Kash and Dan as good detectives on the trail, and we can tell that as American people, they pass that sniff test at first. Then they get appointed. Then they appear with Maria Bartiromo. And what happens? They appear like they're brothers trying to, no, we didn't have a house party this weekend when you guys were gone. No, there's no beer cans in the recycling, right? They're that suspicious and stupid.
Mhm.
And we can tell that it's a lie. And this, again, is one of the biggest scandals of our time, one of the largest conspiracies of our time, where we have all of our elite effectively and our federal government in some way compromised or wrapped up in this. And the
Well, it
people
seems
who are
that way.
not,
Why else wouldn't there be more pressure? Well, that is my problem here. Is we voted for Trump because it represented change or represented a systematic change in Washington, D.C. On the best side, it represents just a change in direction on major policy areas. On the deep dark side, it means getting rid of the deep state, which is probably what Epstein, the era that Epstein was very familiar with, the era that he was navigating. And first of all, if you're going to change Washington, D.C., you can't lie to us like that. Some point you're going to have to be truthful to us. We can smell the bullshit. This is the press secretary, who I know she gets loved by so many, but I just got to be honest with you guys. Like, I find her to be phony. Here she is getting actually a question from Peter Ducey of Fox News.
The FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States.
We pivot. You see that? It was a very clever little pivot. Oh, we're not talking about that anymore.
Right. Just
a very fair question.
Deflect. Of course, it's a fair question. I mean, remember what James O'Keefe did too. Somehow he was ousted from his own company for showing that Pfizer was in the middle of a bunch of gain of function research. Okay, so afterwards, he's still a hero wearing his cape. He gets another video. Pam Bondi out to dinner with someone, and she's just very openly saying there's thousands of videos. Okay, thousands of videos. And one could say maybe it is just Epstein with some fetish, but that's not the case. We have the Lolita Express flight logs, who RFK Jr. was on as well. There's the compounds themselves, the island, Zorro Ranch, which we'll get into in a little bit. There is an obvious sniff of involvement here. And I think that when we look at the insiders that have actual knowledge of what Ghislaine and Jeffrey were up to, I think anytime you get a chance to listen to Maria Farmer talk about this, I'll post some videos after this, but importantly, Whitney Webb, who wrote 2 amazing books, One Nation Under Blackmail, volumes 1 and 2. You can find volume 2 on archive.org or whatever that is. So you can read it for free. And the really juicy stuff starts in volume 2. And it's the history of Jeffrey Epstein. And it goes into his involvement with Palantir, some of the folks he's involved with. And effectively, she makes the connection between the Jewish mafia, the Italian mafia, and the federal government and the Mossad. So you see all of these players, and once you understand that history, you can't go back. So when you look at Whitney Webb interviewing Maria Farmer, she had insight. She was kind of Ghislaine's first assistant, if you will, and she accompanied Ghislaine on all kinds of trips, did all kinds of favors, recruited all types of girls for their campaign. And she tells a very damning story of the surveillance that was in all of the properties, the people that were associated, both on the right side and the wrong side, if you will, and the intelligence operation, that this was a Mossad operation on American soil. And
don't
that's
let me
stop.
Talk about the Ghislaine Maxwell connection a little bit more. I want to read what some of our people are writing, because I love this topic, because everyone seems to get it in the MAGA universe. Hate Minnesota says maybe the players are worldwide and they fear it would create too huge of a ripple. T-Wall for Life, the wonderful, beautiful T-Wall for Life, says Jen Psaki could gaslight better than her. Although technically the last one that Biden had was really bad at it. What was her name? I can't even.
How did we forget her? Corinne?
Yeah, she was terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jen Psaki could gaslight better. Crucified says blackmail and threats made them backpedal. And Tucker says, congrats on the successful operations. Now release all of the Epstein files. Right. I didn't watch that whole press scrum there. I don't know if there was more questions on that. It's the only one I saw. So I do want to come back a little bit more on the history of Epstein, because I think you're somewhat of an expert on this. But I do want to just bring this up, and this is from the heart here. I am I am becoming very. I want to be careful how I put this. Becoming very upset with Trump. Okay. I think that it's important to understand that I think Trump's done some really wonderful things and way better than what Kamala could have done, right?
Right.
And then, of course, having walls that close to White House. Okay, so don't regret voting for Trump. I also, when it came to the presidential election, I didn't think my vote was going to be a mega change to anything, right? In fact, I said on this show many times that voting for Trump gives a chance that we could change the system. Okay, I didn't believe it would, but I think it gives it a chance. There wasn't obviously. There is obviously another argument to be made that why my friend Andy says, why is your head covered by the logo? I guess I don't know why I put that there. I'll take it off, Andy. But I think there was an argument to vote for Kamala. I never would, by the way, but it's to be that if the ship is going to sink, let it be my enemy steering the ship. Okay. So Trump is in a unique position here where he has been given an enormous electoral success. Even his enemies on the left understand that this thing wasn't close, right? I mean, he not only won all swing states, he even won the popular vote. So this is like the mandate of mandates, okay? If we're going to fix Washington, D.C. and the deep state, this is the time. This is the opportunity, okay? And that's not just, revealing things like the JFK files and what the hell these UAP sightings are and stuff like that. It's also reducing government out there, which is too large and adding to our debt. And it's also stopping the military venturism overseas. And I got very vocal about Iran. Took some heat. I was very vocal about the big, beautiful bill, which I would never say an omnibus bill is big and beautiful. I'd say it's big, but I wouldn't say it's beautiful. But where this all started unravel was the Epstein lies. And that goes back to what was that, February, March, where they supposedly gave these binders to all these social media influencers, just thrown in our face. Till all of a sudden yesterday, and I'm not really certain why yesterday this news was released, other than the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is coming to America for the third visit the year, right? Which is crazy. But all of a sudden they release this, and it's like no one believes you. And you can check for yourselves on Twitter, on X. MAGA is very unified against this bullshit. And most people won't go there, and they're going to say Pam Bondi this and Pam Bondi that, and Pam Bondi's a problem. But it's got to rest on Donald Trump. In fact, even in that first Fox News interview, she says the president has ordered me to do this. So
Right.
the buck does stop at Donald Trump. Trump, are you not paying attention to what got you here? The Epstein files isn't some minor little thing. It's a mega thing, because we all understand that Jeffrey Epstein had so much power and influence over the most powerful politicians, the most powerful billionaires in the country, the head of science, all these institutions. He had so much power, unexplained wealth. And we all know what he was doing. We know he was getting blackmail on these powerful people. We know that. Everyone knows that, right? And we also know he didn't kill himself. We know this stuff. So when you tell us that that's not true, no one believes you. It's so obviously a lie. And at some point, if you're willing to lie about that thing, which is very important to all of us, you're willing to lie about the big, beautiful bill, which adds more to our deficit and adds to our national debt. And you're able to lie about things getting us in a red. And at some point, Donald Trump is going to suffer losing a coalition that includes libertarian types like me, who is excited about this new coalition. But you're going to lose people like us when you can't afford to lose us, because your domestic agenda already is tough to get across. Do you agree with what I'm saying there?
Oh, 100%. I think that, obviously Trump is better than Kamala domestically, and even I think his foreign policy on some issues is quite good. So I think he's an arm and a leg better than Kamala. The question is whether or not both parties are compromised. They are. So, in terms of Israel and Iran, Trump's foreign policy is going to be the same as Kamala's because of who runs the show. So, to Haley's,
That's a conspiracy, and they lean right into it.
right.
Like,
To Haley's
literally,
question,
this thing comes out the
maybe
day
it's too
before Netanyahu
worldwide.
comes. This
Maybe
is the
they're
day before Netanyahu comes on his 3rd trip here. It's crazy.
right. So, and to Haley's point, this is worldwide. The ripple effects would be insane. And I don't think Trump is necessarily getting nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize from Netanyahu for bombing Iran. It's probably for keeping the Epstein list quiet. That is probably the real deal because that would unravel the entire system.
Can you
In a
imagine
good
a
way, it would be
leak?
tumultuous and a little bumpy, but I would way rather have that secret be known than what we have currently.
Can you imagine a less credible source to nominate you for a peace prize than Benjamin
Right.
Netanyahu?
Right. Yep. It's all that's show and theater right there. But of course, I think that all of this is crazy. I think that it coinciding with Netanyahu's visit is well, too much of a coincidence.
I know, but like sometimes I just think that that is the most obvious thing, that it is just literally a coincidence. What's not a coincidence is how this thing just continues to be swept under the rug. And we'll, I mean, at this point, I think we all have to resort to the idea that we are never going to figure out who the clients are. So basically, Epstein was eventually being prosecuted for this, and then he committed suicide, right? So, but Ghislaine is actually in prison. Like the rest of her life will be in prison for trafficking minors to nobody,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like unless the allegation is she trafficked them there for herself, but it's just like no one believes that. Like everyone understands the evidence is they were like the sex parties. In fact, the victims have talked about this. The victims
Right.
have talked to. There's a victim that was allegedly raped 3 times a day. I don't think that was by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine. That sounds like a lot of other people. So who were these people trafficked to? There is, and I don't know if it's not like the client list is like written down and I mean maybe Jeffrey.
Well, I think it
Actually,
largely is.
there is something like that by that
Right.
sicko, but
Okay, so Ryan Dawson, whose book is right here, he is incredible on the subject. He is kind of the bad boy to Whitney Webb's librarian type of appeal. Ryan Dawson is very much a bad boy in these circles, but he's been right on. He's been right on for 25 years. He was right about 9/11 from day one, and he continues to be right. But he made the Epstein list. So you can go on ANC report, anti-neocon report, and you can look at his documentaries, one of which is titled Trump's Zionist Ball and Chain, and it goes through the history of Trump's involvement here. But Ryan Dawson, ANC report, has the Epstein crime map, and he also then has done a lot of legwork in uncovering the facts that connect Trump and this organization. And it began in the 80s when Trump was bankrupt. The Rothschilds secretary, some assistant who was then Secretary of Treasury or something, Wilbur Ross, said on a Frontline program that Trump was worth more alive than dead. So the Rothschilds came in and bailed him out in the 80s. Again, this is all public knowledge. And that's about the time where he starts working with Epstein as well. So he's been with Epstein since the late 80s, early 90s, ever since. Let's not forget that Trump met Melania through Ghislaine Maxwell at the Kit Kat Club or Kitty Cat Club. And before Melania, it was another model that Ghislaine introduced Trump to. He didn't jive with her, so on to the next one. And you just have to wonder if Ghislaine is running an intelligence operation, what role does Melania play in that? And I think if you look at the allegation when Trump first ran for office in 2015, there was a lawsuit alleging that Trump raped a 13-year-old at Epstein's with Epstein somewhere in one of his residences. That
I guess
lawsuit went away, of course, as we
yeah,
know, but that
I'm familiar
residue
with it.
remains, and the question remains, is Trump similarly compromised in this? And when he said, "I wish Ghislaine well," when he was asked whether or not he was going to release the Epstein documents, apparently there was a modification or an alteration to that video where, "Would you release the Epstein files?" Yes. That's what it was clipped to say, but really what they clipped out was him hemming and hawing like, "Oh, that's a little more complicated. There's so many people involved." Well, if there's so many people involved, how come now there's nobody involved? That seems a little weird.
You know, what you're saying seems so crazy to me, and I would just scoff at it. But at the same point, why then is Trump not doing this? And it has to fall back on Trump's shoulders. Like, why is he not releasing this? Terry says, I think Trump has confused we the people's love for his stated policies, which is deport all illegals, no war, eliminate waste, fraud, abuse of taxpayers' money, lower taxes, for love for himself. Indy PIO, I think that's a new person, so welcome to the show. All I can say is, surely they know that they look like fools saying that there's no Epstein's list. They can't be that stupid. Okay, so that's a great point. They're clearly not that stupid.
Right.
So then it asks the question: they know what they're doing. Do they just assume we're too stupid? Like, what? I don't know what the calculation is here. Like, we clearly don't believe you. Like, not, just go and X. No one. If there's someone that believes them on this one, they are like literally you can't. I don't think you can come out of this one if you're a social media influencer in the mega universe. I don't think you can come out looking good. You know, the ones that
No,
are
for sure.
still pro, trying to give Trump a good light is they just focus on Pam Bondi, right?
Right.
But like, I don't know if I've seen anyone like try to make the argument here
Well,
that
I think so. Haley brings up another good point here. Research Robert Maxwell, of course. So
yes,
Robert
yes,
Maxwell
let's get into
was
that.
a real estate and media mogul that was involved in the Mossad. He was given effectively a spy's funeral in Israel where I think it was like the prime minister of Israel at the time said that his contributions to the state of Israel are some of the most important but can never be stated. Okay, well, we know what that is now. He sold the Promise software, and what that is it's a mainframe system that had a backdoor into its databases. So the Mossad, the Israeli government, was able to look at all of the documents and data information that a company or country would use. So Robert Maxwell went around promoting the Promise software, and it was an Israel spy database. The Netflix made a movie about it called, I think, The Octopus Murders. You can check that out. The Octopus Murders on Netflix has a crazy espionage story that is parallel to and deals with the Promise software. So Ghislaine's and this brings me to my next point here. We think this is crazy and new. This has been going on since empires have been built. The fall of empires have largely occurred from within, and this is just another round of foreign infiltration being the demise of what once was a great nation.
Yeah, and I think also Robert Maxwell. I think it's important to talk about how he actually. I think he was serving in something important in his World War II experience, but he was like part of the early creation of Israel. Because remember, that's post World War II, so it's
Right.
not like he just worked for the Mossad. Like he was like a mover and shaker in the Zionist movement from the early onset of establishing the new country of Israel. You know,
Right.
the one that God talked about in Genesis 12, according to Ted Cruz, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No,
So
and like your friend Tom brought up, he said that Mordecai Vanunu was a nuclear scientist that spilled the beans on Israel's secret nuclear weapon program. Perhaps why this man here was assassinated. I'm not sure, probably. But so Mordecai Vanunu was set up and arrested or kidnapped by the Israeli government in England with the assistance of Robert Maxwell. So the ties with the family and Israel are immense. And in fact, Ghislaine Maxwell's siblings work in intelligence with the Mossad Unit 8200. Most of her siblings are similarly involved in the spy game.
Well, one thing, kind of where I wanted to go with this conversation, and then the next topic I wanted to talk about is Elon Musk talking about a New America Party, is that when we know that we're being lied to by the people that were supposed to change the culture and change the, basically drain the swamp, right? The people that are supposed to be America first, right? But when we're being lied to on such a monumental thing that we all know is a lie, I don't see this going in a good direction from here. And I was
Right.
explaining this to someone over the 4th. I can't speak really great of Donald Trump right now. I'm beefing with Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't know who the hell I am. So, I mean, it's not like it's a one-way beef. But you see what I'm saying?
He's
Like,
watching right now.
yeah, right. Well, I hope that would be nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you promised to doing. Okay. And now you're not doing that. Right. I mean, he's done a great job on the border. Okay. Credit to where it's due. But I don't see how. I think the biggest thing you could do in politics, to me, not to most people, okay, obviously, because politicians lie all the time, but is to lie. Like, there are degrees of lies. Like, there are lies that are like, did he characterize that wrong? Was the crowd size really 500,000 instead of a million? Right? Like, are there like lies that are kind of like tweaking the truth, or lies that are so subjective that I think you're lying, but I don't know? And then there are lies that are just like, you are straight up lying, and you're lying because there is a reason that's very sinister behind it. And this is clearly in that second category. And I don't know how we come out of this thing unless they do a 180 on it. And I don't get any inclination they're going to do a 180. And I just feel like business as usual on Washington, D.C. I mean, we just learned that this massive bill that grows the Defense Department and grows the federal government, and is going to add to the deficit, is a good thing. We should be all praising and be cheering on that Washington, D.C. finally got their work done right before the 4th of July. And God bless America. We're going to celebrate our Independence Day with, $4 trillion more okayed to add to the $37 trillion in debt. So in other words, the Republican Party just okayed going over $40 trillion in debt, which in my opinion actually is going to make a big difference, right? I don't know. Can we get out of this stuff? And Elon Musk, I think the calculation from him is, no, we can't. We cannot. This party is full of shit. And obviously the Democrats are full of shit, right? Like, he's not saying let's go to the Democrat Party. If there's somehow a Democrat on here that's watching and goes, I still want to work with the Democrat Party, there's no hope from the Democrat Party. I mean, I've watched the shift in my 2+ decades in politics. They are a lost cause. They were once anti-war. They were once pro free speech. They are none of those things. They were once somewhat pro civil liberties, right? They are none of those things now. They are the party of killing unborn babies, DEI, wokeness, and war.
And just blind warfare. Right.
Right.
And it is sad, and again, I want to reiterate that it is not necessarily your average Democrat neighbor that is holding these views. A lot of this is extreme views, and the most vocal people are the craziest for whatever reason. I mean, just look at Jake and I. But seriously though, if you think about this, I'm upset with the apparatus that is propagandizing the people on the left and the people on the right, because the people on the right have been susceptible to it as well. It's just we're kind of waking up faster than our friends on the left. But again, I'm upset with my friends at the left for entertaining this to a degree. I'm way more upset with the apparatus that has aimed this propaganda at them.
I like what Tucker writes here, because this is the argument against the New America Party, right? It's, let's start another weak-ass party that never wins and only plays spoiler. how else do you change the culture of politics unless you are willing to spoil the party that's screwing you over, right?
Here's this. I actually don't think it's politics or candidates that are the issue. It's the process. It's the corporation that is the RNC and the DNC, and who are they controlled by? The same people. So it's the same big pharma, military industrial complex, MSNBC folks that are contributing and assisting with both sides. And we get a little bit of change. You know, we have a little bit of a domestic policy improvement, but for the most part, we're getting the establishment's wishes, the global
Mhm.
intelligence operation, their checklist is still relatively on schedule. They're a little behind with Iran, but again, it is the corrupt process of getting good candidates in. I mean, we saw what happened to
Right.
Royce White. I mean, anytime you try to get someone who knows what they're doing, knows what they're talking about. And I mean, look at Thomas Massey. I mean, he somehow got in before I think he woke up. So he was able to just be kind of a nerdy Kentuckian that, you know, was kind of naive to the world. And then now he's seen all of these things and is speaking out about it, and they're trying to oust him like crazy. So it's not a
Trump
lack
is
of candidates, it's a
Trump
it's a bad process.
Trump and AIPAC are trying to oust Thomas
Right,
Massey, which is
right,
so fascinating because,
right.
you know, and all this kind of stuff, who is the person that's getting the heat? And it's like Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, like the two most conservative people in Washington, D.C., the two people you want to make sure stay on Washington, D.C.
Right.
I mean, there's more shit talking on Thomas Massey than Mitch McConnell, who is still a United States senator at this stage right now. He's still the turtle is still serving in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah,
Oh,
Lindsey Graham, oh my god. You
Lindsey
know,
Graham.
to be an interrogator, dude, like, to be actually able, like, to get Lindsey Graham under the lights and to start busting him up would be one of the most gratifying things ever, to just see these snakes fall apart. So there's a couple more things I want to touch on. Okay, so who represented Jeffrey Epstein?
Well,
The lawyer Alan
Dershowitz did at
Dershowitz,
one point. Yeah,
and then he also represented Trump during his impeachment, right?
yeah. I mean, Alan Dershowitz is a pretty, I mean, one of the most famous attorneys, and obviously of Harvard Law School. So,
Yeah.
in many regards,
Yeah.
that's not the biggest shock in the world. Just
No, but it's Dershowitz's involvement with the Israeli government that
sure.
ties this together in a way that is highly suspicious and problematic.
You know,
So I
you have to understand before you go after Alan Dershowitz, he did keep his underwear on when he was getting massages at.
Yeah, and he didn't even like it. He called his wife and said he didn't even like it.
Didn't even like
Yeah,
the massage. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, like
Well,
that one is like. Now I gotta be careful what I'm saying. I don't want to be sued by Alan Dershowitz, but
oh,
we
yeah, I
all
think
see his interviews and we're like, really? Okay,
right.
interesting,
And
interesting.
and okay, so I think the other really crazy part of this is Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. Okay. So Zorro Ranch apparently was never raided, if you will. They didn't go through with a camera like they kind of did of Epstein Island. We don't really see much of Epstein Island, but Zorro Ranch was really kept under close watch. And we don't know much about that particular piece. But what we do know is alarming. It was a compound that Epstein was creating to seed humanity. Okay, this sounds nuts, but just Google it. Epstein Zorro Ranch. The guy bragged to people that he was going to use it as a breeding ground for famous elite scientists, what have you, to seed humanity with a supremacist ideology and seed. Okay. So the amount of creepy, holier than thou stuff that went on is we don't even know the extent of it yet. Apparently that temple on Epstein Island was soundproofed. I don't know why. I mean, you're on an island in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Crazy stuff. So that, and this brings me to my last point on this Epstein stuff. And this is what makes me mad. Okay, so Virginia Giuffre is now dead, right? I mean, she was hit by a bus and then committed suicide. I don't know what happened with her final months on Earth, but wholly tragic. Her and Maria Farmer's testimony on what happened at these islands
Mhm.
is satanic. It's so crazy and evil. Young girls trying to swim off the island, never to be seen again by Epstein's guards. How many young girls died in this process and in ways that are awful? And these people, I censored myself, but these people absolutely need to be held accountable. It's not just our elite are completely corrupt, blackmailed, and disgusting. It's that the process by which that happened to them, it's the process, it's this intelligence operation, the blackmail operation that was purposeful. Again, Leslie Wexner sold Epstein that condo or huge apartment in New York for $1, and it had surveillance equipment everywhere. Maria Farmer says the same stuff. It was designed to surveil people committing horrendous crimes.
Mhm.
Okay. And so we cannot lose sight of that just as humans. And those people deserve justice. Those kids deserve justice. And those expletives need to go down.
Okay, so that's a really good point. So the victims have not gotten justice just because Ghislaine's in prison and Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. Okay.
Right.
They also the whole operation existed so that they were victimized existed because there were marks, right? And the marks were clearly politicians, so that we
Right.
could get these guys to do. We should get, whoever it is should get them to do what they want to do. Okay, so that right there is a great point. Just for the victims' sakes, this stuff needs to come out. Okay, but I think beyond just the victims, and actually the victims are the American people, because we have a right to know why our government is not pursuing the interests of America and it's pursuing what I would consider the interest of Israel. This is what bugged the shit out of me about us attacking Iran, okay? Which turns out looks like it was probably a very successful operation, and Trump restrained himself and didn't go with the neocons and continued attacking Iran and tried to get a regime change. Okay, so praise Trump for that. But we attacked Iran not because Iran had any bit of a threat towards America. That's a ridiculous. Anyone that wants to claim, I'd love to debate someone if they really are a threat to America. Okay, they're not a threat to America, and they were not on the cusp of getting a nuclear weapon. That's ridiculous. It would have taken at least a year for them to even have a bomb that they wouldn't even been able to deploy anywhere because they couldn't put it in a plane or they couldn't drive it anywhere. So like that's a ridiculous statement, and they certainly couldn't drive it to America, and they certainly couldn't drive it to Israel, and they wouldn't want to do it to Israel anyhow because they also think of Israel as a holy land, and they wouldn't want to bomb it with a nuke. Okay, so that's just a ridiculous claim. So clearly we went and we did this thing and provoked Iran for Israel's benefit. In fact, a lot of things we do is for Israel's benefit. Okay? And a lot of things we do in America is not for the benefit of the people that are here. It's for the benefit of other interests in other countries. And so I think we have a right, because we're being victimized as taxpayers and the voting public, to know who the hell he worked for. So if Pam Bondi says there's no client list, and Pam Bondi says he killed himself in prison, and honestly, I don't even care about how he killed himself in prison, although we know he didn't kill himself. But what I think the American people least get to know is, who did he work for? The former Secretary of Labor said, as a federal prosecutor, he was intelligence. Who did he work for? We'll never get the answer. I know I'm asking kind of a rhetorical question, but do we not have a right to know that question or the answer to that question?
Well, I think it's obvious. I mean, it's the only country that you're not allowed to talk about, and that's China. Okay. It was obviously China. And so, no, but seriously, I think when you look at this, this is from head to toe an Israeli operation. And from what I've always said is I want a secular foreign policy. I don't want an Abrahamic or a biblical foreign policy. Even if they're getting the theology wrong that we have to support the modern state of Israel, that's still a theological wish, that's a theological foreign policy. That's an Abrahamic foreign policy. I want a secular foreign policy that promotes peace with everyone. You can
Right.
go back
Trump
and
won on that, by the way.
right. You can go back and look at Nixon. You can go back and look at Nixon chat about this. He says that Israel wants war with Israel's enemies, including Iran, and it behooves the United States to be friends with all enemies, if you will. It behooves the United States to have free trade and open dialogue with all countries that are willing to do it. And from my understanding, it pretty much is all countries that are willing to engage in peaceful negotiations. When we engage in peaceful negotiations, we bomb their negotiators. We've done it to the Palestinian Authority and we've done it to the Iranians. We bombed, and we didn't, but Israel did, killed their negotiators. That to me is crazy. And how are they then to continue to negotiate in earnest? I mean, if anything, they have gone above and beyond to demonstrate restraint and to continue to have their eye on the prize, which is peaceful trade. And that would raise everyone out of poverty. It would alleviate so many issues. But right now we have a Middle East conquest, the greater Israel, and we may have delayed actions in Iran for a while, but I truly believe that we're going to be going back in there. Now,
Yeah, but
playing
not
the
for
devil's
America's
advocate a bit,
interest. Not for
playing a,
America's interest. That's what bugs the crap out of me about Iran, because I don't think you're wrong about that. And this was definitely designed back in the early 2000s in the infamous 7 countries, right, in 5 years
right.
that General Wesley Clark talks about. So, but it's not for our own interest. I mean, we had on the last show you were on, my friend T. Mage, who's literally traveled to Iran. Like, you can see his videos. Like, they love Americans there.
Right.
Like, the average Iranian person loves America. We can do business with Iran.
Right.
Right.
I want a Persian rug. I want to go to Iran. I want a Persian rug. Go on YouTube and look at that. Buying a Persian rug in Iran. It seems like one of the coolest things ever. A
Yeah.
super sophisticated, loving society that needs to be respected and preserved. And
Yeah.
and to play devil's advocate a bit for Trump, he had to appease Israel. And so maybe those couple little bombing runs were to appease Israel, save face while still allowing a peaceful process to unfold with negotiations with Iran, keeping the America First population somewhat appeased because, hey, we don't have troops on the ground, etc. And again, if Trump was shown the video, if you can look at Judge Napolitano, I think one of the best shows on YouTube is Judge Napolitano. Please watch Judge Napolitano. But he has said that Trump called him from the Oval Office and said, yeah, if they showed you what they showed me and people weren't listening, I would, you would do the same. And at some point in time, I'll tell you what that is. And so so Napolitano talks about this. What was he shown? I think he was shown the fate of this guy and what happened to him. And so, hey, you play by the rules or you get Kennedy'd. And so that was the only way for Trump. That was the only way for Trump to stay alive, to maintain, to keep his head and to keep things together.
Well, I think they just threatened his family at this point. I mean, Trump's 78 years old, lived a good life. Like, I think you go after the family, which is something that it seems like he cares a lot about. Okay, let's shift in here in the last 10 minutes. Just want to talk about this America Party because, the way I see it, and this is brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home and want that home financed by people that believe the same things you believe in, go to johngaltmortgage.com. Elon Musk, let's just, once again, I try to do him justice, give him the benefit of the doubt. I can understand why the left doesn't trust a billionaire, the world's wealthiest person. I get that. I understand that. And I also can understand why people on the right go, oh, this guy's all of a sudden now, this big right winger, he was talking about climate change. He was a Democrat before. I understand that too. But by the way, So was Trump. Trump was a Democrat too. Trump, if you were looking for ideological consistency over the decades, you better look at Trump as not the poster boy of that, because he was a Democrat. Okay,
He was, yeah, I
he,
think he was like a little bit on the front of some of those progressive social issues, you
when
know,
he
and then
argued
I
for
think that's
socialized
what
medicine on the
Democrats
Republican
were at the
stage.
time. Democrats were a little less, or war savvy, what have you. So, but if you look at some of Trump's statements over time, the American people are being hammered by these trade deals.
Yeah.
We should be more peaceful on the global stage, but we need better policing at home. He's actually said so much of the same stuff. So I commend Trump at least for that. But do I trust him that he's not compromised, that he's not going to be doing Israel's bidding? Absolutely not.
Well, clearly not at this point. Okay, so let's just give Elon the benefit of the doubt here and take him for his word and what it seems to be his most important issue, which is really the out of control deficit, which is adding to our debt every year, and why that's a big problem. In fact, he's starting to talk and post about a lot of the same people that I like to talk about, and people that I read, probably people up on my shelf there, including Ron Paul. So if that's this big issue, and he goes in with good faith to try to enact this thing called Doge, which is to get rid of fraud and waste in government spending, and months later, 100 days later, or 120 days, whatever the contract was, nothing happens. And even any cuts that actually get institutionalized from Doge eventually, which I'd love to see how many actually were, but any of those that have been overtaken by the increase in the defense budget and everything else that just came through the big, beautiful bill. And you go, okay, I'm a guy that wants to go to Mars. I'm a guy that does things quickly. I want to change politics. I want to change it by next election cycle. If that is your idea, starting a new party is probably the best thing to do, in my opinion. I don't go there. I think there's ways to work inside the Republican Party, get better candidates. But if you're Elon Musk and you're so sick of these swamp creatures because he sees them at the top level, right? And clearly they don't listen to him, right? Like there's only 2 Republicans that voted against the big beautiful bill in the House at the end, and only 3 in the Senate, right? So it's like clearly they're not following him. Then maybe the best option for him is the New America Party. Where do I go wrong in that one?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I mean, so Musk called out Trump for being in the Epstein files. Okay,
Right.
I think that's amazing.
You kind
I've
of
always-
walked that back, but
I've always said that I would. Well, he deleted it. He said maybe that was a little too harsh. You're like, it's kind of like when you're in an argument, you say something that is incredibly truthful, but then maybe is a little too.
yeah, I know,
biting.
because he said I think his words were, I said some things I probably shouldn't have, or something like that. It's like,
Right.
but
But
you didn't say that.
nonetheless, like I think that we all kind of know his insight there.
Right.
But I've always said I would accept any legitimate criticism of capitalism. Okay. Capitalism is responsible for lifting the world out of poverty the last 50 years. I mean,
Right.
the World Health Organization, IMF, many institutions have tried to ponder what has alleviated people from poverty, and it is just free trade, cell phones, technology, all of these innovations that capitalism brings. Okay. But capitalism, like I've said, is the most beautiful garden in the world, but like all gardens, it needs weeding, so I'll accept any legitimate criticism from a socialist, what have you, of a capitalist system. So with this American Party, apparently Musk is getting insight from all people, around the political spectrum. So Andrew Yang apparently is contributing some thought. There's the Libertarian Party, of course, that Musk has always been flirting with, that is contributing some of the platform ideas. And like I said before, it is the RNC and DNC corporations that that block and blackmail and jail legitimate candidates that are a threat to the establishment and that are going to bring prosperity to the American people. Those people are ousted, chucked, right, by the RNC-DNC. So yes, the Libertarian Party might be a little backwater, but if we can get members from the left and the right that have legitimate criticisms of our government, border debt forever wars, that's not a right thing. That's not just Royce White. That should be on the left as well, So there are things that we can do to improve our country. And I think a lot of the divisiveness that comes from the media, that come from, I would say, the deep state trying to keep us separated, could really be defeated with a strong party. Now, I think it would take a lot of transparency and uncovering the corruption to have your average mom and pop Iowa voter begin to see the light. They're still so indoctrinated and kind of sheltered in their cocoon of lies. And so it would take a lot, I think, to break all of these people out. But this is a step potentially in the right direction. And if they remove, that process by which shit candidates are, pushed forward and the ideal ones are ousted, then I think we have a viable option and a potential future in this country.
Okay, let me talk a little bit more specifics about how that would work, because I guess I would be an expert on that. We'll do that in the premium subscriber show only here. We're going to start on locals in about a minute. Tucker does a Rumble rant, says Elon should stick to rockets and stay out of politics. If we had to pay as much child support as he does, we'd be in jail. Well, and that is an interesting point. Like, he is not living the lifestyle I think is a smart lifestyle by having a bunch of children out of wedlock. I certainly don't look to him as some kind of moral leader for sure. But with that being said, I think he can afford the child support,
Right?
Which is
right.
generally one reason it's so bad for a lot of guys.
If he stayed out of politics, we wouldn't have Twitter. If we stayed out of politics, we wouldn't have had that initial Doge wave. Like, we need to oust this waste, fraud, and abuse, right? Like, we can all agree on that. So I think I like most of Musk's politics, and I think that he is calling out the right things. The Fed sucks. The Epstein operation was bad. War sucks. So if we can continue to push those messages forward, I don't care what avenue, platform, or person is saying it. If someone is standing up and they're brave enough to tell the truth, I'm gonna get behind them and say this person's telling the truth. And as soon as they deviate, like Trump, we're gonna call them out as well.
Yeah, amen to that. I couldn't agree more with that. Okay, so I'm gonna post real quick here in the comment section. If you're
Tucker.
Yes, if you're not a premium subscriber, become a premium subscriber, and then you get access to the post show. That's $8 a month. It helps us out tremendously. It's actually what fuels our show. That and our great sponsors, which include Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and John Galt Mortgage Company, and Elite Guardian. If you want to shoot with me this Friday, if you're interested in concealed carry, it actually counts for your Minnesota permit to carry, but we call it a concealed carry and home defense class because we're talking about a little bit about home defense, and we're going to talk about the basics of pistols. So you can sign up at EliteGuardianMN.com. That's this Friday, right in Roseville. And then what the hell, you get to shoot with me. Isn't that fun? Okay.
I took my third time taking one of these courses. Jake's is the best. It's thorough, but it doesn't take all day. The shooting exercise is fantastic, and Jake is incredibly knowledgeable and entertaining. So it's worth it to take it.
By the way, it's not my curriculum. It's actually USCCA. I got to give them credit, So wouldn't I be the amount of time I would have to spend to put together that great content? Oh, you've got yes, that's awesome.
Yes,
perfect. Sir. All right, so we are about to go to our members only. So I put the link in here. Otherwise, if you're on Rumble, you just click on join on the top on Truth Hurts. Truth Hurts' newsfeed. Otherwise, and you can do this after the fact, even if you're not watching live. You can watch after the fact, and you can watch your post show after the fact. You can also go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on support us there. Thank you, Tucker, for the Rumble rant. I see people already going to locals. This is kind of cool. The Rumble studio I can see as people merge over to the other platform. That's one of the big benefits. Okay, so for everyone else who's not a premium subscriber or signing up, we'll see you back here on Thursday. Everyone else, we're going to be on locals right away.